Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Wanted to do something a little bit different today. I came across this video from CNBC, Why It's So Hard to Be a Worker Right Now. It really relates to what personally I'm going through as someone that got laid off recently on Halloween. If you want to find out more about my experience with that, check out the video in the end card. And also, I'll just put it up on the screen here as well so you can kind of see that video after this and many others in the United States and honestly all around the world experiencing these layoffs. So it's good to kind of put that perspective, see what's going on out there, and just kind of plan ahead for the new year that's coming in. So let's see what CNBC has to say about what's going on last year around this time.
On LinkedIn last year, we saw that about 1 in 7 jobs were remote, and now that's down to about 1 in 11.
The laptop class is living in La La Land. It's messed up to assume that yes, they
Elon
but you
Musk.
don't.
I wonder what he's going to be doing with the government now.
It's a great way for employers to have that employee engagement, employee satisfaction. If the quiet cutting is done the wrong way, it impacts the reputations for employers as well.
The biggest market is the labor market. If you look at what employers do, where their budget is, it's mainly going to labor.
Employers are hesitant to lay off workers because of their recent experience with labor shortages. So there aren't as many of those opportunities for folks who are trying to break into those roles.
Yeah, it's really tough right now. Definitely gotta
on paper
playing a different game now these days.
Solid. Unemployment hit a 54-year low at 3.4% back in January of 2023. And U.S. employers added 2.7 million people to the payroll in 2023 alone.
Wow.
The January jobs report also showed the 2024 labor market was off to a solid start.
When we look at the hard data, it seems to suggest that the labor market has been fairly strong and, in fact, surprisingly resilient, especially after.
On a side note, Glassdoor is a really, really good website to check out if an employer is legit or not. Personally, I use it from time to time when looking at different companies when applying, just to see what's up, just to see what's the tempo when it comes to what's going on, what's really going on in these companies. So you should definitely put that on your tab when you're on the job hunt.
2023, where we had headlines about layoffs and forecasts of recession. But when you look at the soft data, Americans tend to be a little bit less optimistic about how the economy is doing, and in particular about the job market.
Politicians just talking about how the economy is so great. I just want to scream from the rooftops. Then how come no one can find a job?
Recently, unemployed full-time
relatable,
workers applied to
man.
an average of 30 jobs. Only
so relatable. Politicians say one thing, people say one thing, but what's really going on, right?
They're down a little bit, but not down enormously. But if you ask, how hard are you working to fill them? The answer seems to be not very right now.
So why does it feel so hard to get a job right now? And is the U.S. labor market as strong as it seems?
Hi, my name is Jenna Jackson. I'm from Ardmore,
Janet
Pennsylvania.
Janet Jackson?
Suburbs of Philadelphia.
No. This job market is like the craziest that I have ever seen.
I was frustrated just with how my job search process has been going.
At least she's having fun with it, Definitely need to be optimistic during these dark times.
It would be a little depressing, I feel, at this point to quantify it. But it was definitely in the hundreds at least.
Wow.
55% of unemployed adults said they were burnt out from searching for a new job. Younger generations were impacted the most, with 66% complaining of burnout stemming from job search.
Wow.
Looking for a job can be a full-time job. There's a lot that goes into it. Filling out applications.
See, I like what she said. Looking for a job could feel like a full-time job. So technically everyone has a job. People without a job, people with a job. Well, if you are searching for a job while currently working, which is honestly one of the best ways to kind of do it when you're already employed. But for the people that aren't, you already have a job. And that's looking for a job. The cycle continues.
Applications online can be tedious and can be time consuming and can be really stressful.
Every day just feels like Groundhog Day. You're waking up doing the same thing.
It's a good
When I
movie.
looked at the data, if you just applied to a job through a job board, the odds of you getting hired were about 3%. So you got to apply to a lot of different jobs
Yep.
in order to have a chance to get.
And oftentimes people think you just, spray and pray, but you can't do that method forever. You gotta kind of need to pull out that sniper and just kind of no scope when it comes to some of those roles,
them, and you're going to get lots and lots of just no responses. And it's exhausting if you do that.
A 2023 study from Glassdoor revealed that mentions of applicants being ghosted by their prospective employers grew substantially since before the COVID-19 pandemic.
We often hear from job seekers that they send out tons and tons of applications and they don't even hear back. And that can be very emotionally and mentally taxing.
It's unprofessional as well. It's like, especially if you're going to take the time to do an interview with them, you can at least let them know.
And I think it's because of technology. It's easy to put up a job, and so many people can see that job. So when you get such an overwhelming response, it's often very difficult to get back to every single solitary candidate. Certainly during the Great Resignation, when the market was at a fever pitch, companies were being ghosted by candidates, which is something that hadn't happened as much in the past. So we've seen it happen on both sides of the fence, and I think a lot of it is caused by just sheer volume.
See, and that's the thing when it comes to the sheer volume, because I used to recruit. I used to be in talent acquisition and stuff like that in my last role, and when it comes to things, we have all this technology at our fingertips, right? At least spend 10, 15 minutes of your busy day saying, "Hey, the role has been closed. We're not accepting no more applications," and send that notification saying, unfortunately, we were just closed. We have a lot of candidates at this time. Look at our other roles. At least have some closure. Yes, it is a rejection, but it's closure. At the end of the day, closure is way better than ghosting and just thinking, "Oh, what could have."
Time it takes for a company to hire an employee also hit an all-time high at an average of 44 days during the first quarter of 2023.
Wow.
With some industries like the energy and defense sector taking more than 67 days for hire.
Wow. That's kind of wild when it comes to those kind of metrics. In some companies, it's honestly half than that. They look at 44 and they're like, "Oh, that's too long. What are you doing?" They tap you on the shoulder, If you're a recruiter, you know what I'm talking about.
Longer with going through multiple rounds and doing assessments. My worst experience so far was with a large financial institution where I had a phone screen with them, and I also had a Zoom interview with one of the team members. After that, I had a case study where I was given very vague instructions. They got back to me and said that the team didn't feel like there was enough, so they gave me another attempt. In the end, I just ended up just going back to the recruiter and saying, I'm sorry, I don't think this is the best fit. Because even if I did move forward and, they were okay with my revision, there still would have been 3 more interviews.
Three more interviews. So the first initial pre-interview, then you have to do a test, then you have to do 3 more interviews. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like at that point you're just, you're doing free work at that point, and you might not even get selected. Like it's shenanigans, honestly.
Employers think that doing more interviews is a good thing. And it's not a good thing.
4 interviews.
Most job interviews are not doing anything important.
They don't know
that the questions they're asking are going to reveal anything about whether you're a good candidate or not. They don't know when they ask the question what the right answer is. And this is a development that's been going on for a while. It's not a good thing for anybody. And even if the labor market was stronger, you would still be seeing some of this.
Yep.
There are generally two terms
Trying to find that
economists use to
unicorn.
describe the state of the job
There's
market:
no such thing as a
tight
unicorn.
and loose.
Usually, when economists talk about a tight labor market, they mean hot, essentially. Mostly, what that means is it is difficult for employers to find workers. And so, in that context, employers tend to be more hesitant to lay off workers. They tend to try to be more aggressive about how they hire, whether that means offering bonuses or offering on the job training. By contrast, a loose labor market or cold labor market is one where there might be layoffs, it might be hiring freezes. It might be difficult to find a job for workers who are either already in the workforce or workers who are trying to enter the workforce for the first time.
The American labor market has remained extremely tight following the end of the pandemic.
So many companies had to scale back during the pandemic. And then all at once, companies were able to hire again as their
It was like
businesses
huge
started to
boom
move.
during
So
that
you
time,
had
man.
so many
It was
job openings
insane.
happening all at the same time.
Job openings surged to historic highs, while the country continued to struggle from a devastating labor shortage.
Yep.
With so many plentiful job prospects, even working Americans quit their jobs at a record pace for new jobs,
The
in a
Great
trend that came to be
Resignation.
known as the Great
Oh
Resignation.
boy.
But the job market is beginning to show signs of cooling.
There's less of a frenzy on the part of the employers. If you're somebody who wants a job, you would like a frenzy on the part of the employers because you would like to have lots of people trying to hire you.
I think one interesting thing about the job market right now is that it is strong, but the hiring rate is low. And similarly, the layoff rate is actually very low.
The layoff and discharge rate in the US has been hovering near historic lows, despite the barrage of layoffs reported specifically within the more visible tech and media sector.
Tech and media. When I look at tech, I think about the gaming industry, and I'm seeing all these layoffs. Honestly, on a weekly basis, at this point, since I'm on LinkedIn, I'm seeing the people that's really active on LinkedIn kind of post that another week of layoffs with a different company in the industry, and it's unfortunate. It's disheartening. You know, it's top heavy.
So I think what might be going on here is that employers are hesitant to lay off workers. They're hesitant to push workers out because of their recent experience with labor shortages. But on the flip side, that also means that a lot of workers are sitting tight. They're not quitting. They're not being laid off. And so there aren't as many of those opportunities you would normally expect from attrition for folks who are trying to break into those roles.
It's a lot less of it.
Research from LinkedIn found that job seekers' search intensity in the US grew by 27% in 2023 compared to the year before. In 2022, there was one open job for every active applicant on the LinkedIn
Probably double now
platform.
at this point.
By 2023, the ratio turned to one job for every 2 active applicants.
Maybe triple.
Right now in the marketplace, what we're seeing is
Probably
both
triple
employers
now.
and employees being a little bit more selective. Everybody's taking a little bit more of a measured approach right now, being a little bit more selective in their choices, and that's why we've seen a little bit of a cooling in the marketplace.
However, experts reassure that the cooling labor market is no reason for concern yet.
It is important to have a perspective that's a little more historical on this. You know, if you're hunting for a job right now and you can't find one, it looks like a lousy job market to you. But compared to your parents' experience, it's a great job market.
I think that sentiment
and that's
is
the and that's the
minus expectation.
and that's the thing that's kind of scratching my head is because when you're out there applying, specifically on LinkedIn, and it shows you how much people have applied to the same role that you're applying to. Oftentimes, you either see it in the 80s or 100, and I think that's the max that they put on there, 100. You kind of get discouraged. You're like, man, am I really going to get through this kind of thing? Like, there's 99 plus other people that also apply to the role, kind of thing. This is why I'm saying you got to do things differently. Got to update that LinkedIn. You got to put yourself out there more. You know, talk about your skills with the right people, and that's how you're going to get ahead. In addition to, of course, looking at your resume, updating your resume, making sure it's relevant in the market today, and then pressing start on that too. It's like I said before earlier on, it's a different market. You're playing a different game now.
applications. So in 2021, 2022, there were labor shortages, companies were hiring very aggressively. And so even if 2024 is shaping up to be a relatively healthy labor market, by recent comparison, it doesn't feel quite as strong.
A cool down in the labor market was also what the Federal Reserve had intended with its series of interest rate hikes.
If you are the Federal Reserve and you want to slow the economy down, that means you want to slow the markets down a bit. The biggest market is the labor market. You know, if you look at what employers do, where their budget is, it's mainly going to labor.
Yep.
So you can't easily cool the economy down unless you cool the labor market down.
Experts also noted that the health of the labor market will largely rely on where the economy is headed next.
If the economy does slow down more significantly in 2024, if we see a recession in 2024, the labor market can be somewhat resilient, but it can't fully buck the broader economic trends. And so that's definitely something we want to watch out for in 2024. It's not a guarantee that the job market is going to remain as strong. Broadly speaking, we might have some optimism about the economy. That doesn't necessarily mean that the job search is an easy process.
I guess the big thing I would say is it's not you. You know, it's not you. It's happening to thousands of other hundreds of thousands of people at the same time. And it has to do with what's going on in the bigger economy. It has to do with uncertainty, but it also has to do with a lot of quirkiness inside employers about how they handle hiring these days.
It's definitely difficult out there, but you know,
I would like to add to that, like the rise of AI, like all these AI systems and tools out there. You know, when it comes to upper management, most of them might think, hey, we have AI now, we could give this to little Timmy and have him kind of do this in addition to AI. So he has to do extra work, probably likelihood of getting burned out, and plus trying to pivot learning these AI tools, which is, you know, it is helpful to learn about this stuff, but in the long run, it's not sustainable because that person is going to get burned out. And then you're going to have even more people leaving and more morale lost. So it's a chain reaction that most managers and upper management don't see these days. And it's going to be a wild 2025, peeps. I'm telling you, I could see it. I see it.
just encourage you not to give up and still keep diving into your network and stay tight with family and friends, just to give you, the emotional support that you might be lacking at the moment. And
I hope she finds work soon. She has a good attitude.
Confidence that you can do it.
The golden age of remote work is next. I wonder what's the other thing that they have here. Quiet cutting. And once again, this is just a reaction to their video. So if it's anything, if you want to figure out what's going on with the remote work side of things, you could check out their video. But I honestly want to see what's going on here with the quiet cutting side of things, since it honestly relates to me on what's going on and so many others that's been laid off.
I have good and bad news. Which do you want to hear first?
What's the bad news?
Your current role has been eliminated.
Okay, what's the good news?
You're being reassigned.
This is an example of quiet cutting, a new workplace trend that's been dominating the
Published
headlines.
October 2023.
Quitting. Now there's a new trend, quiet cutting.
Halloween will never be the same for me, man.
Quiet cutting. Some bosses have been trying out a new technique called quiet cutting.
Quiet cutting is restructuring and reassigning the roles and responsibilities for a completely different thing by not giving them layoff and portraying like, we have something for you, we'll take care of you. Here is the job, take it or leave it.
Here's the job, take it or leave it.
Avoiding layoff in
some people get that option. Others,
for the past
don't.
few years,
they'll just give you that severance and just kind of say,
quiet
okay.
Quitting. We've seen the Great Resignation,
Thank you, bye.
All of this was a sign of a strong economy, a strong labor market, tight labor market. Employees have had the upper hand. Quiet cutting is a suggestion that the tables are starting to turn. That employers are starting to have that upper hand now.
It used to be a buyer's market. Now it's a seller's market.
Quiet cutting is just a buzzword term, but reorgs, when a company reorganizes their internal system and teams, is not new. It's not a new concept. And reorgs have historically either been made to benefit the company, but have historically always frustrated employees. It is being highlighted as a different aspect of the mass layoffs and changes in the field of work that we're seeing.
This is Matt Conrad. He's been reassigned twice at IBM. He ended up with a job he loves, but the reassignment process took a toll.
Yeah, so I was actually reassigned, I think, twice in 366 days. And unfortunately, I live with mental health disabilities and major depression, complex PTSD, and anxiety disorder. And all three kind of kicked in simultaneously. And I started having panic attacks on really a twice-a-day basis, and ended up taking short-term disability to make sure I protected my mental health.
IBM isn't alone in having employees reassigned to new roles.
That's unfortunate.
Big name companies like Adidas, Adobe, and Salesforce have been enforcing large-scale reassignments. Also, LinkedIn research published in May found that hiring has continued to slow in many countries, but internal mobility is trending upwards in several industries. Some economists say that despite the overall U.S. job market remaining strong, companies are fearful of what lies ahead, so they're resorting to the quiet cutting tactic.
Quiet cutting,
quiet
or
cutting is
just
happening
laying you off
because
altogether.
companies are fearful of what's coming down the pipe.
This
They're
year is
fearful
super different.
that
Economy
the
is
economy will go into recession,
there
or
it
that
is.
they will run into economic headwinds, and they are concerned that they're going to have to cut down the line. And so this is a little bit of insurance for them. The other thing it does is it potentially saves employers money, because if you have to do a major layoff, then you have to pay severance. There's all sorts of other financial issues that come into play that will cost you money. So this is sort of a way to have some savings and hopefully get rid of some employees. It's really unfortunate. It does not reflect well on the companies, and it really is very harmful to employee morale.
So one of the things that typically happens during business cycles is this process that economists refer to as creative destruction. So as we figure out what the next step is, when you see demand slowing down, what's the new product you're going to release? You want to create, but then in order to create, you need to cut costs. And that's part of the destruction. So really, businesses are trying to optimize for the future. And that results in these things that we call reorganizations that are often being referred to as quiet cutting.
Quiet cutting done right is a great way for employers to have that employee engagement, employee satisfaction. But if the quiet cutting is done the wrong way, it impacts the mental health, it impacts the employee engagement, it impacts the reputations for employers as well. So they really have to think it through if the quiet cutting is the right approach to go by right now, or maybe layoff it is, because they really have to think it of if it's the right approach.
For me, what I learned is you have to go through the process of grieving, of being angry, of loss, and then see what doors will open up, see what windows will open up. I never would have thought I would have ended up on this team. I never would have thought I would work for a manager who really has my back and supports me. And now both those statements are true. I love what I do, and I love who I work for. I would encourage all employers to consider the pros and cons, and if anything else can or should be done. Perhaps, giving an employee an option between two roles, if that's a possibility, or even saying, hey, would you like a severance package of some sort, or would you like to be reassigned? Just giving employees some say in the process, I think, would make them feel more comfortable about the whole thing.
Quiet cutting. Some people have the luxury of, some companies have the luxury of giving that out, but in most cases, it's layoff and severance. So let's see what these comments are saying here. I applied to the job and just got the rejection email. Wow, 18 months later. Wow. I went through eight interviews with Yeti Coolers for a design engineer job, only to get told they chose someone else internally to fill the role. Absolutely ridiculous, the amount of time wasted. I'm telling you, this is, and this is why it's so important to close the circle as a talent acquisition specialist or recruiter, because you'll have comments like this, and it just hurts the brand of the company, and it's just not human. It's crazy. Let's check out one more comment. So if I don't have a full-time job, your full-time job is finding a job. That's basically what it is. It's an endless cycle. And this is a bad one right here. My family is struggling to afford food. Yeah, and that was 51 minutes ago. So that's like, yeah, Thanksgiving's not going to be so thankful for that person because of, unfortunately, a layoff or just, something else. It's dark times, man. You definitely need to find a light, join a support group, talk to a friend, talk to your family, and just, do everything you can, because life is too short, quite honestly, when it comes to just work, 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 work. Like the song, you gotta take a step back and look at the big picture and look at life, in these kind of times, and see what's best for you and your families. Always go and add value, of course, to a company. Don't get me wrong, but also think about what's good for you and your family and your loved ones. Okay. So this was the So Why It's Hard to Be a Worker Right Now by CNBC Marathon. It had another video in there, but I really wanted to look at this whole aspect of quiet cutting. It's quite interesting, comparing it to layoffs. And if you like more content like this on the channel, let me know. Send me some videos to react to when it comes to video games and slash or anything on the job hunt, and we'll just talk about it as a community. You take care, be safe, and if you're watching this around this time, happy holidays. It's about to be Thanksgiving this week, so list down in the comments what you're thankful for this year. For me personally, I'm thankful for having Dylan Digital, being able to build on my own business while also still looking for contract-based work if that's out there for a company that puts people first, and honestly the community that I'm building up over at LinkedIn and other video game people in that space, and having a good time with it. So if you like this video, like, subscribe, and there's more coming in the pipeline soon. You take care. Be safe. Bye.